Okay, we'll continue with the heart, looking at cardiac muscle. Now, cardiac muscle is similar to skeletal muscle in that it's striated. There's thin and thick filaments arranged in sarcomeres. There's endoplasmic reticulum that stores calcium and all of that kind of stuff. But they are much shorter. They are involuntary, and they are branched. That's an important consideration. And the last thing that differentiates them from skeletal muscle is that they are interconnected. So an action potential in one cell will spread into the neighboring cells, the cells that they're connected to. So there is the same sort of thing, that there's an endomysium, the same as in skeletal muscle, but it's connected to the fibroskeleton of the heart rather than to a tendon that will go to a bone. There are fewer T-tubules, but they are bigger, and the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which stores the calcium, as you remember, is less developed. There's also far more mitochondria. And the mitochondria are large because the heart uses a huge amount of ATP. You can imagine, how many reps can you do with your biceps doing curls? Your heart beats once a second for 100 years. Like it never stops and it never fatigues. So there's a huge number of mitochondria necessary, which means that there's a huge need for oxygen, very highly oxygenated. So when we look at it under the microscope, we get these photomicrographs, you can see that it is a striated, branched, fat cell, tends to have one nucleus, and where it joins onto the other cells are called intercalated discs. Now, in the intercalated disc, there's two types of junctions. There are desmosomes that act against tension. So when it pulls on, it's got something to pull against. And it prevents the heart from pulling itself apart when it fills. And there are gap junctions, which are holes that actually join the cytoplasm of this cell to the cytoplasm of the cell next to it through these pores. So any sodium coming in here to depolarize this cell and cause an action potential, the sodium will flow through here, depolarize that cell, and cause an action potential. So functionally, all of the cytoplasm in each one of these cells is really joined, and so it almost acts as if it's one large cell. So we call the one large cell aspect a functional syncytium. Syn means together, cyte means cell, so functionally it's as if it's one cell. When you have a depolarization event happen in one cardiac muscle cell, it spreads throughout all the other cardiac muscle cells. So the heart will then contract as one. They all have the action potential at the same time. They all have their refractory period at the same time, and they all are ready to contract again for the next beat simultaneously. When we looked at the kind of the histology of this is the intercalated disc. You'll notice all the surface area to join them together, that there are gap junctions and desmosomes all through here. These are the gap junctions here. They tend to have this kind of shelf. In woodworking, we call it a rabbit joint. Lots of mitochondria, and then myofibrils with A bands and I bands, and exactly the same. The sarcoplasmic reticulum doesn't have the triads. It's not quite as fully developed.